Welcome back to the Young Minds Podcast, everybody. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you that the next episode will be coming out on Monday for 9/11 to commemorate our heroes. Just wanted to let you know that so that way you don't get confused. But anyway, enjoy the episode with Kyle, everybody. My name is Charlie Banks, and I'm a 17-year-old kid who started the Young Minds Podcast to spread the Word of God. It is my goal to do this podcast. You learn, you laugh, you cry, whatever it may be. I just hope that you enjoy it and maybe grow in your relationship with Christ. But just remember, this thing that the Lord is starting is way bigger than any of us. So let's get after it. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you on today. If you could just introduce yourself and we'll just keep on going.
All right. My name is Kyle Salter. I am a believer, member here at Northside Church. Been here since 2014. I work with the Valdosta, Georgia Police Department. Been there a little over 23 years. Currently the lieutenant there, and I'm over the detective division. I have a beautiful wife, Jill. I have a son, Drew, a daughter, Emily, a younger daughter, Ellison, and a younger son, Zachary, and blessed recently in the last 2 years with a grandson named Mallard.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Love to hear that. So when it comes to your testimony, because I'm sure it's pretty interesting, right, with you being a police officer, how's that with your story and everything?
I was saved when I was 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So raised up, parents divorced when I was 3 years old. But I had a great stepfather, and stepfather made sure that not only did we go to church, but we knew God. We had a relationship with Him. My father didn't get saved till late in life. And so I always felt, thankful for that right there.
Mm-hmm.
However, I hit the teenage years and drifted away. My parents, we would go to church, and then, my buddies and I would sit in the balcony. But always knew I wanted to do something, and leaned in between going to teaching, going to law enforcement, and felt called to go into law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Being in law enforcement, though, definitely you are limited working with the community. You're limited on being able to talk about your faith.
Right, 100%. Yeah, that's and unfortunately now that's anywhere really, like any job you go to, because they don't want you to talk about it all that much unless you're working, I don't know, at Northside.
Exactly.
You're not gonna be able to talk about it freely. And so like but to go back to the Northside a little bit, so when did you first come to the Northside? When did that happen?
It's funny you should ask. I'd gone through a divorce. I was a member at Cross Point, great church over there, and I was a sergeant at the time in the detective division, and had Detective Colby Clark. And Colby knew that I'd gone through a divorce, and I didn't feel comfortable going to Cross Point no more. Felt like, like we were, I knew he wasn't by the church, but just did not feel comfortable walking in, I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rick Coran was actually doing a revival, and Colby invited me to that revival. And came the first night, and liked it so much, came back next night, ended up coming for the whole revival. And then he told me, he said, hey, it doesn't stop there. I'll save you. Him and Ashley said, I'll save you a seat with us. They sat, this was before the church remodeled, they sat to the right, probably about 4 or 5 seats from the front, and they saved me a seat. And within a matter of weeks, I knew that this is where God wanted me to be, and I've been coming ever since.
Oh, yeah, and I just, it's crazy to look at pictures, because I'll look at pictures of how it used to look. And it just and I know they expanded, the sanctuary a little bit, but it's crazy that most of that was in the same room.
Yes.
And it looks so much bigger, tremendously bigger, with lights and everything, on the big stage. And it's funny, though, because, I tell people all the time now, it's I think that the Lord really wanted me to just be at Northside all my life. And I see that because even when I was 2, I would come to fall festivals and stuff, and I'd be right here at Northside. But it's just funny, years down the road, I'd be a member of Northside, and I just didn't know it yet. Stuff like that. It's just so cool.
I tell Colby Clark still to this day, we still work together. He is transferred to a different unit, different bureau. But I tell him all the time, God used him. Don't ever, when the church says go out and invite people to church, don't ever take that not seriously, because had Colby Clark not have come up and invited me, I probably wouldn't be at Northside Baptist Church.
You wouldn't, and you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me either.
So Colby Clark was and is an obedient servant of God, and he did what he was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And I just like when they made those cards for the crusade that we're having this week, I just felt, I was like, this is an easy thing. You can hand these out and people can read them. Like, you don't even have to. It can be in short passing, just like, here, take this. And like, I don't know how many cards I grabbed and started handing them out. Like, and that was one of the small things I was able to do. The Lord allowed me to do at school. It's like, I'm not saying anything. Just take a card.
Just give information.
And I gave it to teachers and students. I was like, because you never know what a teacher's impact is going to be on a student. And so if you can get them to come to church, you never know, right? And so I'm praying that this week, I don't think I saw any this morning, but I'm praying that that I see some this week. But so how long have you been a police officer in the force?
23 and a half years.
23 man, that's a long time to be a police officer. So when it came to 9/11, everybody was like, most of the law enforcement was respected, right?
Yes.
And then so now you look at today's timeline, right?
Yes.
And you're just being like, now a lot of police officers are disrespecting, a lot of law enforcement are too. Like, how does that make you feel, on a personal level and as with your job and things like that? Just how quickly things changed, in a somewhat 20, 21 years.
When I was a kid, I wanted to do something to help people. And my dad used to shoot down the idea of me wanting to go in law enforcement. He said, you're going to get killed by some crackhead with a $25 stolen handgun. But I knew I wanted to help people. And when I got hired on, there was so many people in the profession, so many people wanting to get into the profession, that I didn't even think I stood a chance because I didn't have any law enforcement experience. But Chief Frank Simons took a chance with me and hired me. I had nothing but financial experience, and he hired me. And a lot of people, I was 125 pounds back then. A lot of people thought I'd go out there in the first 3 or 4 months, end up quitting, leaving. And now, I've given, a quarter of a century almost of my life to helping others.
Mm-hmm.
I've missed time away from my family, and to see how a large portion of society views us, it's heartbreaking. I'll be honest with you, it makes me look forward to the day in a way that I'll be able to hang that badge up and go do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, because I know, like, especially 2020, I was looking at it, I was like, how can they, go through this? Or how can people do this to another human being, and treat them like this? Like, and I remember I sent in a letter, I don't know if Commander Stephen Thompson showed you, but, like, just those small things, I'm like, there's got to be something that we can do, and, like, and it was so disheartening, because I remember watching, like, the stuff on, like, the news and stuff. Man, I wish I hadn't, because, that stuff will drain you, right? But it was so disheartening to see. And I hope that one day, and I pray that one day it'll go back to how it was when, like, 9/11 happened. We have a day where, your line of field is respected, across the board. It's, for me now, I think it's about 50-50. The way I see it is half the country does, half, and then the other half, not so much. I just pray that it changes one day. But so how did you feel like in 2020 when you couldn't do your job properly? Because, if you think about moments, like, I'm not going to specifically mention them, but you probably know what I'm talking about. Yes. Like, that happened to certain people, and, like, they were getting all, like, publicized and all that, and you couldn't do your job properly. How did that make you feel?
First of all, it was disheartening to see that some of the blame that law enforcement receives today we brought on by ourselves. And I say that by the mistakes that law enforcement officers have made.
Mm-hmm.
But I say this, everyone in any profession, we all have a same commonality, and that is we are all human. So we all have sin, we all have potential to make a mistake and mess up. it's just, it's saddening because I work with a great group of people that get up every day, and no one walks in that office saying, whose rights can I violate today? How many people can I take to jail today? How many people do I get to shoot today? Everyone comes there with the intent to help someone. Now, what some people view as help may not be what someone else views as help. But the majority of calls we are responding to are because someone has called 911 and asked us to come. We don't get the luxury of saying, no, we're not coming. We have to go there. And so it's very disheartening for such a large percentage of society to feel like we are the bad guys when our job is to come and help people.
Right. And, one video that sticks out in my brain, because there's countless videos out there of other officers and things like that, is I don't know if you've seen it, but there's an officer, he had to shoot a guy because he was getting too far away and they had to apprehend him, but he just wouldn't comply. But he is, because it took his life, but he was bawling, upset about it. And that's what I don't get, is that people think that y'all want to do that stuff. I was like, they don't want to do that. But they want to help you, but when push comes to shove and you're you have to take action when it's neat. You know what I'm saying? But it was just why do people think that your line of profession just wants to do that stuff? I
have a personal friend, an officer that responded to a call. It was the domestic dispute. She got there. The male was assaulting the female. She pushed him off. He then brandished a large knife. She started calling for backup help. The neighbors all come outside. They're all seeing this. The neighbor said this female officer, did everything she could not to have to use force on this man. But eventually, before I could get there, I was the second person back up. There was another officer. Before any backup could get there, on her body cam, she'd walked back over 400 yards trying to get away with her handgun drawn, telling the person, drop knife, drop knife, drop knife. He finally made a decision to lunge at her, and she had no choice.
Right.
She had to defend herself then and use deadly force, and it did take his life. It was shortly after that she completely got out of law enforcement. People think that we can take a life like they do in these video games. This is real. We understand that. And the last thing, I've gone 23 and a half years, praise God, without having to take a life. And I pray that He allows me to finish my career without having to do it. But I also know that if I'm required to do it, that is something I hope I never have to. But I understand that if I'm required to do it, that may just be what I am required to do. But it's not something that I definitely come to work looking forward to. I train for the hard times and pray for the good times.
I love that. So on a lighter note, how's it working with the Chief and Commander Stephen Thompson? Because they're a mutual friend of ours. So
Stephen Thompson, I couldn't ask. I tell him this all the time. He's the reason that I'm still there today. Well, God keeps the door open, so He hasn't closed the door for me to leave. That's why I'm there. But Stephen Thompson is definitely someone that God is using to keep me there, because we've worked together both as detectives. We've worked side by side in separate units in the detective division as sergeants. We've worked side by side with him being a lieutenant at the crime lab and me a lieutenant over at the detective division. And now he's my commander. And I just, I don't think I could go into work and enjoy it as much as I do if I didn't have the leadership that I have from him.
Yeah.
He guides me. He listens to me. He respects me, and he's my brother.
Yeah. And I love him so much. With anything when it comes to trying to help you guys out or doing some small thing or whatever, he's always willing to help me out and get that worked out. One example I saw, and I don't know if you might have saw the post, but it was oh my gosh, it's going to drive me crazy if I can't think of the officer's name. His first name was Austin. I think it was Keen.
Austin Keen.
Yeah. He prayed for, a guy in his church, that was about to go homeless. And I was like, you know what? We're going to reward that, because I just love that so much. You don't see it very often. And so it was the last day of me being 16, I went up there, to the department, and we worked it out so where I could give him a gift card from Texas Art House and a letter. And it's just small stuff like that, I I'm so thankful the Lord has allowed me to do, and the chief and Mr. Stephen, they've allowed me to come up there and just serve you guys. And I hope to do bigger things too. And I hope you see me around a lot more up there too, and not just here. You'll see me everywhere.
Well, I tell you what, law enforcement officers, we deal with the worst of the worst. So we're always seeing usually the ones that we're having to arrest, you know. But so it means so much to us when we have the community come up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they may think it's simple when they just come up and say thank you for what you do. It means so much to us when we have someone tell us that right there. You know, they don't have to buy our meal. They don't have to bring us food to the police department. It's great when they do. Just the simplest thank you for what you do. It gives us reason. It lets us know, hey, somebody appreciates what I'm doing for this community. And that right there, if only affect one person, then I'll retire knowing that, hey, I made a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah. And, you know, like, because I know that, like, some people are, oh, you know, you got to do these big old grand gestures. I'm like, no, they appreciate it, you know, especially nowadays. They really appreciate it. So, you know, to top off the questions in this section over here that I have, you and your wife went to Israel.
Yes.
Right? So can you tell me about your trip going to Israel and how it was to go with these amazing group of people? Because you went with, what was it, you and
46
it was 46 people.
46 of us went.
Yeah.
Yep. First of all, trip of a lifetime. If you have not been to Israel, pray about it. I promise you, if God lays it on your heart to go, make the reservations, because He will provide the funds, and you are going to get so much from Israel. A wise man, Miles Hannon, told me, when you get back, you will read your Bible in color, because you will now see it.
I love that, yeah.
Great trip. And, you know, for me and my wife to go to Israel would have been one thing if it had been just my wife and I.
Mm-hmm.
But to go with 44 other believers, to have
that experience,
so much knowledge and faith with us, to share all the history, all the blessings that God has done for us, and be able to share that with us. It was the fastest 10 days I've ever had on a vacation, and was just a trip of a lifetime to see how much God has done for us and be able to put your hands on it.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm like, this, I mean, for me, it'd be like, man, I get to go on vacation with Pastor Robbie, you know? Like that, for me, that's just like so cool. And, you know, to get to go with your church members. Like, I know Mom was telling me that y'all were talking about it, like Noah really impressed you with his knowledge at his age. And, you know, because I've worked with him over the summer, you know, I've kind of like shadowed him, and you're right. Like, it just blows me away with how much he knows, and everybody knows, and how kind they are.
Well,
you know, how much knowledge they know.
If you haven't been on vacation with Pastor Robbie, you haven't been on vacation. Pastor Robbie is cool. I'll tell you that. He is cool. Josh is the protector of the group. Josh is there to make sure everybody is okay. And standing right there beside him is Jeff. Pastor Jeff is there to make sure that everyone is okay. No one's getting left out. Everyone is able to enjoy it.
Yep.
And then you have young Noah come along. And I saw this man that was so full of God just share his knowledge and his love for God over there. And I told him, I said, young man, you don't realize what all God's going to do for you, but he already has been, and he will continue to be a blessing for so many people. It is evident that our church is blessed by so many people that love God and serve. And it was just a great trip.
And, you know, and when you mention all those people, you know, I was able to, like I said, work with them and to see them on a more personal level too, you know, because, again, you get to see that with vacation, right? Yes. You know, because not everybody gets to see, like, you know, how Pastor Avi is or whatever, like how, you know, Josh kids around, whatever, you know, like just when you're up here or in Israel on vacation with them. And that was such a cool thing, you know, of course, and to shadow Noah, like, what a blessing. Out of, you know, I was thinking about it, I was like, out of all the youth that are, you know, in our youth group, because there's tons, you know. I mean, I think on a good school night, sometimes we'll get 50, you know. Out of 50 youth, God chose me to be in that position to shadow Noah and everybody else. Like you saw Pastor Jeff, that doesn't surprise me one bit, that he's the one making sure that everybody's enjoying it and, making sure nobody's left out. That does not surprise me at all.
If you want to have a good time, go eat with those three.
With
Jeff, Noah, and Josh.
Yep,
boys,
I've done that.
They can eat. I'm telling you, they love eating.
I got the privilege to do that because when we went to lunch together, and you're right, they do, and they know where to eat too.
Yes.
Ask them.
Yes.
I've taken my mom to some of the places they took me over the summer because it was all new stuff. I was like, man, we have this in Valdosta. It's so good, But yeah, we are so blessed over here. We have, and it was so funny. I think my mom was talking about. There might have been one night there was like another guy, he was preaching or whatever, filling in for Pastor Avi. And, my mom just didn't get as much out of his message as others. And, she was like, man, it makes me so thankful, though, what we do have and all these amazing pastors. They are all different styles of preaching, but we just love them all, And, like I said, and, Noah's is also just always really good.
Yep.
Simple words, but he just puts it in a way that I can understand it.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
So, but when it comes to the youth, because I'm sure you've worked with them, being a police officer, when you look at the youth today, do you see hope or are you worried about the future?
I am worried about the future, but I know there's hope because God has won the battle.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to go back, in my opinion, we've got to go back and strengthen the family because the youth today do not have family upbringing. You've got too many single parents raising kids, and I'm not saying that a single mother can't raise a child or a single father can't, but in today's world, in society, there are so many evils out there that are trying to steal our youth that it takes a village to raise a family. And what I mean by that is we've got to put that edge of protection around them, and if we don't, you can bet the streets are going to steal your youth. And I've seen it from the lowest of incomes to the families that had wealth and lost their child due to the dangers of the street.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was thinking you were going to say, and it's just like so interesting to see like that contrast, like split right down the middle. It was like it don't even matter where they, maybe like you said, maybe the richest people on the, in Valdosta, it can happen. That's what I would say with like temptations and stuff too. It can happen to anybody.
That's it. That's it.
Because like for me, I was like, going through a certain temptation or whatever. I was like, some people may think, oh, you're a good kid. Like that don't happen. No, it can happen to anybody.
Evil is not prejudice. It goes after everything.
And that's one thing I've definitely learned. The Lord showed me it can happen to anybody.
That's it.
So, and like we've kind of discussed as well in that question, young people face a lot of like challenges with social media and temptation and things like that. What is some advice as a police officer that you would give to young people to navigate this world in a biblical way?
First of all, have a relationship with God. You're not going to survive in the storm if you don't have God with you. Next, have an open line of communication with your parents. Don't be ashamed to tell them what you're going through. Don't be ashamed to tell them the struggles. Your parents didn't just go from birth to being parenthood. They were teenagers too. They went through things. Maybe it's a little bit different now, but it's still they went through trials and tribulations. Communicate with your family. And then find you a mentor. Find you a mentor that if you're not comfortable coming to your parents, that there's someone that you can go to for godly advice, because all it takes is one time. One time can cost you an eternity of consequences. So have people of faith that you can go to that will listen to you and that you trust to guide you in a godly direction.
Love that. Love it. So, I mean, and this can, again, happen to anybody, but why do you think, especially young people, often run away when they hear the name Jesus, like in today's time, like, say, like in schools or whatever?
Peer pressure. I think it's not cool to, use the term, be a Jesus freak, Stop and think, though. If you were in trouble right now, if you could only make one phone call right now, could you call those friends if you were in trouble sitting at the police station? Would they really come? I can tell you, my 23 and a half years experience, the people I've arrested, the people that they're hanging out with, I give them that option. Guess what? They never wanted to call one of their friends.
Wow.
It was their mom or dad they wanted to call. But I can tell you who's going to answer every time when mom and dad may not always be available, and that is God. Jesus will always answer you. He is always there for you. And so understand that this earth, this is not our home. This is just a temporary passing through. As much as your mom and dad love you, nobody loves you more than Jesus does. Nobody. And he accepts you. You may do things that disappoint your mom and dad or your friends, and they may turn their back from you. Those things disappoint Jesus too, but he will never turn his back on you. Never.
Yep.
There's only one person that you can depend on in this world, and that's God. He's the only one that you know will never let you down and be there. Now, he's not going to give you everything you want, and he's not going to answer everything when you want answered, because it's not the right time. It's his will to be done, but his will is perfect. So I think that's what it is that kids, it's just not cool to be known as believers, and the church, Christians, believers, we are failing society by not going out there and showing them the blessings of God and the love, the unconditional love of God.
100%. And it's funny, especially now, like in some of my classes and stuff, like, a lot of times in math class, what my teacher will do, and it's a great way to, get your mind kind of, because we have short attention spans, right?
Yeah.
He'll do like a game in between things, like we had to do like trivia or something. What the question was, and this teacher is a Christian. I know for a fact there's posters, like verses all over his wall, which I'm surprised he's allowed to do that. However, it's great. But the question was, what book in the Bible has 3 letters? Job, of course. And my group, they handed me the whiteboard because they knew instantly I would know it. It's like they were like, "Here, you're religious, like take it." And I'm like, "Yes." Like it's like they know that, So that it's like I know a lot of people, like you said, they would not want to be known that they're religious or they go to church, whatever. But for for believers, it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I show that, because you don't want to be seen hypocritical or whatever. But that feels good, and I pray for for a final thought here. I pray for the whole department, and for you especially, with coming close to retirement. Who knows? Maybe the Lord's going to bless you in a big way right before you retire. You never know, right?
I've told my wife, I recently finished my master's degree, and I've told her, I've got plans. I'd like to go into education and teach. But if the good Lord doesn't open that door, if he wants me to stay in law enforcement, then, I'm going to do what he wants me to do.
Yep, exactly. And, it's a little bit cliche, but, thank you for all you do. And for everybody that might be listening to this that's a friend of Kyle's, I thank you as well for all that you do to serve our community as well as, and whatever God's going to do in the future with you. I can't wait to see it. And I just thank you so much for coming on today.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much.
And with that, another episode of the Young Minds Podcast comes to a close. Always remember, you are never alone, and faith is action. So let's get out there.